Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 161 of the I Rock Knits podcast. My name is Cori Eichelberger, and I'm so glad you're here. It is Sunday afternoon on a sunny but a little bit windy day here in Minneapolis area of Minnesota. I live in Victoria, which is a pretty far out southwest suburb. I just have a lot to show you today, and I don't have a guest this week. I had to rearrange some things, upcoming wedding in my household, and it's taking a little bit of priority. I had 5 designs that needed to come out this fall, and things got delayed there, and so I had just kind of had to rearrange a few things. So we're just going to get right into it today. I have a ton of finished objects to show you. But what am I wearing? I'm wearing my February lady sweater. We went to church this morning, and we were rocking in church, and Chevy came to visit because I'm talking. Hey, bud, go under the table. Go lay down. Lay down. No. We have a band in church at our 10:30 service. It's a contemporary, and man, people were really rocking and rolling this morning. Just gets you in a good mood. Good music, good mood, right? Absolutely. So, I have a couple of new Patreon subscribers, so I want to say thank you to those people who came over. It only costs $2 a month on the smallest end, and because I had 5 different patterns come out this fall, the $10 Patreon subscribers, who are called Brioche Vesters, received every single one of those patterns for free, and so that is like a $40 value for their $10 a month. Now, granted, they have been subscribed, a lot of them, since the spring, but most of my patterns have gone up to $8 now. So if we take 5 patterns times 8, that's like a $40 value, and I just gift those to you right on Ravelry. So if you are interested in upping your subscription and getting all of my patterns instead of having to purchase them separately, that would be an option for you. Okay, I really need him to lay down. Okay, lay down. We do have Patreon knit night coming up this week on Tuesday night from 5:30 to 6:30. We're going to knit together for an hour. It is kind of in that supper hour for some people, but I did try to move it forward, but not into the workday. And so if you are interested in joining, you just have to be a Patreon member. November 19th from 5:30 to 6:30 on Zoom. And I just would love to see what you're knitting. Share what you're knitting. Come to knitting group. And then our book club date is December 17th, so 1 month away, from 5 to 6 o'clock. So the people who are coming would appreciate a little bit earlier hour, and so that's fine with me. And we're reading the book The Girl Who Smiled Beads, and that discussion, that 1 hour discussion on December 17th, is on Zoom. That information is in the Patreon group. So if you're already a Patreon member, no worries. If you haven't become a Patreon member, $2, $4, or $10 a month, it's an automatic deposit. You can cancel at any time, but it's my way to try to get to know you and my community and what you're knitting and what books you like to read and those kinds of things. So I would love to have you join me over there. Good boy. I have been posting a lot of videos and pictures of him from training on Fridays. He goes to a place called Adventure is Barking in Hopkins, Minnesota on Fridays, and they have been working with him on training, and he's getting so good. Ross would like to do some agility stuff with him, so he does do agility there, where he has to go through the tunnel and hop over the things. But he's just a year and a half, so he definitely has some puppy happiness in him. He can get a little overexcited, especially when Kylie comes to visit, which she's done a few times. I don't know. We don't have a lot of people come into our house or stop by our house, so he just gets kind of overexcited. He jumps up and things, so we're working on that. But he doesn't jump up on Mom anymore when I come home. He's still my dog and follows me wherever I go. But yeah, it's been fun to watch him kind of improve his skills and be able to sit and stay. The other day I said stay, and I left the room and came right back, and he did it. And usually he will stand up or come part way just to make sure that I'm not leaving. And he actually, stayed. I left the room completely, came back shortly, and and he was still there. So I was like, okay, this is working. If you are on YouTube, will you watch the video all the way through, comment or like it? That helps move me up in the algorithm, and I am still trying to grow my audience over there. So even if you don't have time to watch until the very bitter end, if you could leave it playing, that just helps me move things up. If you join my newsletter on my website, you get a free pattern, and then you also get a coupon code for all new patterns that come out. I usually give you at least $2 or $3 off the pattern price for a couple of weeks just for being a subscriber to my newsletter on my website. All of my patterns are available on Ravelry, iRockKnits.com, and Etsy at this point, although I really want to get off Etsy because they're charging more and more, and then they eventually go up on Lovecrafts. Lovecrafts has a bit of a cycle to get them up. You have to put them up, and then you have to pick yarns that you can purchase through Lovecrafts, and then they have to approve it. So that always takes a little bit longer, but they would be available. So if you want to purchase the pattern on Lovecrafts and yarn to go with it, then that is part of their process, right? That's how they do it. Because I don't know that everybody knows that Lovecrafts provides, the pattern with the yarn. So you can just purchase the yarn at a discounted rate over on their website. Oh my gosh, my table is full today, and I just have to think about everything that I'm doing. But boy, this is really bright, isn't it? I mean, it's bright in person, but maybe not quite that bright. I did put giant orange buttons on it, and I used my little trick of stitching this shut, basting this shut, so I don't have that button gap ever. I just pull it over my head. This is one of my oldest but most favorite patterns because it's quick, it's easy. It taught me back in the day how to do raglans with yarn over increases, which are very visual. Yeah, and so I just still wear it. I have a really fun Gudrun Schoden dress on today. So yeah. Gudrun Schoden, my girl. I really need them to sponsor me because I love their stuff. It's organic cotton, and it just washes and wears so easily. And I've said this a million times on this podcast, but shop their sales section because that's where you get the discounts. But yeah, because it's not inexpensive, but I love that they use organic cotton, and I wear these all the time. They're just very stretchy, super comfortable. I have a lot of their t-shirts, long sleeved and short sleeved, and then their dresses and tunics are my favorite. Okay, what came out this week? My Stevie hats came out finally on Friday. And I just want to share what happened with this. So we write the patterns as checklist patterns, which makes them a little bit longer, and not everybody needs a checklist pattern. So I don't know, 5 patterns ago, my tech editor said, maybe we should divide it out so that there's no checklist at the beginning and the checklists, they're all at the end. And I'm like, that's a good idea, right? Then if people don't print the last couple of pages, that will work. But if they want the checklists, they're there, and they're titled, and then they have all the check boxes for how many rows you have to do of each thing. And so we started doing that. Well, then when we get to the hats, there's really hardly any difference because a hat pattern is so short that without the check boxes, you're not reducing that much. And so we had these hats that were coming out, the Chevy hat, the Pretty Boxes hat, and this hat that were coming out and she's like, this is kind of silly. And I said, I'm thinking the exact same thing. The hats, which are so short, just need to be checklist patterns. So all week we removed the front half of the pattern and plugged in the back half of the pattern. And then we separated them out into 2 patterns so that you only have to print the ribbed hat version or the stockinette hat version, right? The crown is stockinette or ribbed. And there's a pretty major difference in how you knit that because the stitch markers are in a different spot because of where the ribbing is. And so it's a pretty different pattern actually just to do this part in stockinette. So I said, let's make that into 2 separate patterns so that when you get the PDF, you purchase the pattern, you get both PDFs, right? And one says stockinette crown and the other says ribbed crown. So you only have to print one. So we're just trying to, honestly, save paper. I mean, that's the bottom line. I want my patterns to be checklists. They will be going forward, but only on longer patterns will the checklists be at the end. If they're a short pattern, the checklists and every line will be written out and the repeats written out for the checklist pattern. So that's why it took. And my testers are probably going, what happened to this pattern? Because it completely changed. It did change. And we went round and round this week, and the two patterns don't match completely. And so I added this version toward the end, the stockinette version, and had two testers test it, and they're like, this doesn't match. And it is because those stitch markers weren't in the same place, and you don't knit until 2B4, the cable. And there was just a lot that we weren't really realizing. We just thought we could split them out, and I should have spent more time doing that. So all of my design work is done for the fall. Can we just have a little dance party for Cori? Because in the spring of next year, remind me not to say yes to 4 yarn companies all at once and say to myself, oh, I have all summer. That will be no problem to get those all by the fall. I am not a super fast pattern writer, especially with sweaters. And that Striped Dream sweater took me all summer to get both versions done and knit, and then 8 weeks of test knitting. So I just didn't need everything to come out this fall. I needed to spread those things out a little bit. Yeah, so the Stevie Hat is out. It is available for all of you, and you get both of the patterns. I have gifted that to all of the brioche vesters, so I'm super excited about that. Then I got this hat done, which matches, I'll put a picture in, the sweater that I knit, and I had so much of this yarn left over, and it's lovely. It's a lavender loon tweed, and I thought, wouldn't that be fun to have a hat to match? So this has been sitting in a bag for a while, and so that one got completed. I don't know that I will ever wear the sweater with the hat together, maybe, but I think the hat is super cute, and I wanted to use up some more of that yarn. Perhaps I should have made a matching cowl for around the neck of the sweater, but I didn't know if I had quite enough yarn. Oh my goodness, I'm feeling a little discombobulated with so much stuff on the table. I needed to kind of organize things a little bit. So let's talk about the other finished object that I wanted to do for Halloween that now got done for Thanksgiving. I stacked it up on a chair and made its own little pedestal here because I thought it should show. This is called the Big Pumpkin. It's by Tatyana Korobkova, and I saw it on Instagram maybe, and I thought, oh my goodness, that is so cute. So you knit a giant pumpkin with bulky weight yarn, and then you knit this and stitch it on. She left her leaves kind of rolled up around, but mine, I just tacked it down. I thought, you know, in order to pack it away and bring it out and stuff, it might be better if I got that kind of tacked down. The hardest part of doing this whole pumpkin is that you have these purl ridges, and then you're supposed to run a piece of yarn from the top to the bottom to cinch it in to make these sections. And that was super difficult. I ended up getting out my long weaving needle in order to reach from the top to the bottom of the pumpkin. And that was a comment that a lot of people made on their project pages, that getting that to pull through. My problem was I'd overstuffed the pumpkin because I didn't mind just the purl, so I didn't put a piece of yarn right here. But I kind of wanted the indentations, and I wanted to try it and figure it out how you did it. And so my stuffing was so hard that, and I had already finished it. So I'd take a crochet hook and stuck it down the middle and pulled bits of stuffing out until I could make it. It's still a little overstuffed for trying to make these. If I had to do it again, I would stuff the pumpkin much less, and then these would have been much easier to pull taut, right? Like and make the indentations, but because my pumpkin was so firm, so yeah, I think it turned out really cute. And the reason I wanted to make this is because my entire life, and still to this day, my mother calls me Pumpkin when I call, hi Pumpkin. And I just thought it would be really fun to sit on my mantle in the fall and have a couple of little pumpkins. So I will make another one. I have a bit of the yarn left over, so I'll make maybe a half size one. It's all dependent on the size of the yarn you use, but honestly, to make the big pumpkin with the bulky yarn, I would not have been able to get that needle through if I had just was using a short chibi needle. So you can get these on Amazon. It's a 5-inch. I use this for weaving my plaid for my Pump Up the Plaid blanket. So it's in that folder, the Pump Up the Plaid folder. So I knew for the blanket and that pillow, and I knew that I could get that and stick it through. So just don't stuff it as much and it would have been fine. And most people's are smaller than mine. I wanted to make the bulky one, but people did them in worsted, DK, and fingering, and they just turn out smaller. So would have been fine to do that too. Isn't it cute? I just think it's so cute. The next thing I finished, which only had the tops to go, were my Crofthoose mittens. So this is a fingerless mitt pattern, and I had knit the hat. So here's my hat, and I had yarn left over, and I love these Shetland wool week hats. And I had knit this maybe a year ago, and I had showed it on the podcast, and then I had so much yarn left over, and I looked up, and sure enough, there was a fingerless mitt pattern. Now the front has the 2 croft houses. It's called Crofthoose. And then the back has just this textured stitch. And I decided that I wanted to make them into mittens, which I've designed mittens, so I knew how to do that, but I kind of wanted it to match the top of the hat. Well, when I got to right here, I ran out of the dark purple. There wasn't going to be enough dark purple to do all that. And so then I was like, well, now you're just going to have to wing it because you have a tiny little ball of dark purple left. And so I just did this section, but with one color. And then I just finished the top of the thumbs and the top of the mittens in that kind of lavender. So it worked out fine. They fit great. I washed and blocked them yesterday. I think they'll be lovely to have with this. And I have my sheep hide hat. I have mittens to match too, and I wear them all the time. These are lovely car coat mittens. I have a pair in my coat, and then I always have the hat in the other pocket. So it's a lovely little set. I'm glad that that's off the needles as well. So I was just like trying to get some things done around here that needed to get finished up. Also, it was my mom's birthday Friday, and I'm going to see her this coming Friday. Ross and I are going to drive down to Sioux Falls, and I always knit her something for her birthday and Christmas. Try to finish something. I had purchased that blue sparkly yarn at Yarn Over this year, and it was just for a simple slip stitch ribbed cowl. And so I'm going to put a picture in here because I've wrapped it. I shouldn't have wrapped it, but I'll just put the picture in. It's called the Fancy Ribbed Cowl by Cheryl Addison, and it was a kit. It was just a skein of this blue sparkly yarn, which she is going to love because blue's her favorite color. And so I will be taking that to Sioux Falls with me. I sent her card and I just said, I'll bring your gift when I go. I should have probably mailed it, but I like to watch her unwrap whatever. So I've often knit sweaters for her. She has a couple of cowls, but I think this scarf will be nice for winter. It's a cowly scarf, like it's long and she can double it over. So I just wish I would have wrapped it and I would have showed you, but I took pictures for my Ravelry page, so that'll be fine. Okay, the other pattern that came out is my fancy felted backpack. Finally, I got that pattern rewritten and redone. I shoved a towel in here just to kind of plump it up because, and it has this drawstring I-cord. It's a great backpack for kids or adults. It comes in 2 sizes. We revamped the pattern. It was coming in 3 sizes, and the large extra large size was just turning out so gigantic that we decided to revamp the pattern. So when you get to the top of this bucket that you knit, so you knit a flat bottom, you go straight up, then you just knit some yarn overs here, and then you can felt your I-cord, and then you run that through. It does come with a little handle at the back, and then the bottom is just square, and then you can make these straps as long as you would like. This is the medium, and then this just cinches up like that. So if you are looking for a place to use up some worsted weight wool, I've done this up in a striped version as well. That towel's a little big in there, but and then I just sewed buttons on it. I had these buttons in a bag, and I was like, oh, that would be really fun to just sew some buttons on the top to kind of embellish it for a little color. So I thought that made it kind of cute. So that pattern is also out on Ravelry, and if you are a newsletter subscriber, you got a code for that one. Watermelon bag pattern also had come out, my felted watermelon. Those are really 2 or 3 of the most popular felted patterns I had, and I hadn't rewritten them for like 15 years. They weren't updated with my newest kind of knowledge. So now they are completely updated with checklists and measurements and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think this is really fun. What have I been watching? So much stuff. Not listening to audiobooks as much, and just trying to bang out some knitting recently. Getting some stuff organized in the yarn closet, in the office. Now the patterns are off the list. For a while, I have 2 collaborations coming up for winter and spring, but I have a little break here right before the wedding, thank heavens. I watched the show Untold, Sign Stealer, and that is about the Michigan State football scandal. I'm a big football fan, and I didn't know a lot about that they were videotaping other people's games and then figuring out what the signs were of the plays that they were calling in. And so it was a big scandal, and it was very interesting. And the kid who did most of it had a really interesting backstory. So highly recommend. Then I watched Netflix season 2 of The Diplomat. That was 1 season only, and then there was a hiatus, and it was really a bummer because that came out during COVID kind of. And so I think that what happened is they really couldn't video, and so it took a long time, but I really liked that. The original one, and then the new version was quite good. I started watching Staircase, and I just did not finish it. It was a documentary about the murder of a woman in 2001, and her husband gets charged, and the kids are getting interviewed, and I couldn't keep watching it. And then I watched Brandy, Hellville, and the Cult of Fast Fashion. Brandy Melville is a retail store that came out that was kind of a lot like what's it called? It was too small of sizes for young girls. Everything cropped, everything one size fits all, super fitted. You had to be a skinny little girl to work at the shops. And then the whole thing is about fast fashion and how we buy t-shirts for $8 and we wear them twice and we throw them away, and where all that waste is going. So it was really enlightening, very good. It was on Max. But I think it's also on YouTube. And I think Max is now what was HBO Max. I'm not really sure. So I did a free 1-week subscription so that I could watch it. But Brandy, Hellville, and the Cult of Fast Fashion, highly recommend, especially if you are a cheap clothing buyer. If you like to buy clothes for really cheap, which I think all of us do at some point, but we are really, really damaging the planet. And this company was really, really bad. And then I started watching Vera season 1. That's a British murder mystery series, and she is the main character. It was based on the books by Anne Cleeves, and I plowed right through season 1 and right into season 2. You can watch Vera on BritBox, which is now available through Amazon Prime. And so I did a 1-week free trial. I'm going to watch as much of it as I can and then decide if I want to keep going. But I think there are 13 seasons, and then season 14 is going to be the last season that they do this one. And so it is, what do you call it? Episodic, but predictable. There's a word for that. There's a murder at the beginning of every show, and they solve it by the end. They give you 3 or 4 characters in the show that you think it could be, and you're pretty sure that's who it is, and then it never is the person that, you know, occasionally it's the person that you think. So yeah, I would definitely recommend Vera. It's been quite fun to watch. If you have not subscribed to the Farm and Fiber Knits magazine newsletter, highly recommend. They send out a weekly or bi-weekly newsletter, and the articles have been amazing. They just have some really good writers, really good articles on there. It's a once-a-year magazine, I think, that's going to come out in the fall. I just did a design submission for them for next fall. We'll see if I get picked. But the newsletter is top-notch, really good. So go over to Farm and Fiber Knits and just sign up for their newsletter on the website, because you're missing out on just great information. Octopus by Stephen Rowley. This is a story of a man who adopts an elder dachshund. His name is Ted, and Lily is the dog, and he loves this dog and dotes on this dog. And this is a metaphor for what happens to Lily. She gets an octopus on her head, and that's what he calls it, and he can see it, and he knows what that means, but he doesn't want to call it what it is, so he calls it an octopus. And once you get past that, figuring that out, that's what it is, it's just a touching story of this man and this little dog, and it's a national bestseller. Everyone's talking about it, so yeah, I would highly recommend it. And I don't think you need to be a dog person in order to kind of read it. Ted has been through a lot in his life. He happens to be gay, and he's had a number of relationships. His most recent was a failed, very loving, more long-term relationship. So, and then he's got this dog, and yeah, it's quirky and fun, really well done. Then I finished Raimi Nightingale by D. Camillo, and that is young adult. And it was like a 4-hour audiobook. And this is, again, story of misfit kids who don't fit in. It's really cute. So Raimi Nightingale is a nickname that 2 of her quirky friends give her. And her father has left her mother for a dental hygienist and has gone away. And so she thinks that if she wins the, what's it called? The Little Miss Central Florida Tire Competition, that she'll get her picture in the newspaper, her father will see it, and he might come back. And so she decides to take baton twirling classes in order to have a talent for this little kid's competition. And her mom is severely depressed and not helping her much in life. And she meets these 2 girls. And the one girl's name is Louisiana Elefante, and she's being raised by a grandmother. And there's a whole backstory there. But the grandmother and Louisiana are really quirky and very funny. And Kate DiCamillo is, just an amazing writer. But this was just a really good story. This would make a good book club book if your book club wanted to read a young adult novel, because there'd be a lot to talk about. it's the minds of children and how they think and what they go through. And then you find out the backstories of these other two girls. So yeah, definitely quite good. Then I did the doozy. I did Demon Copperhead and by Barbara Kingsolver, and that is a super long audiobook. And I didn't quite get to the end, and Libby took it back. So I've brought it up, but even what I read, I mean, I'm very close to the end, but of course you want that last little bit. It's really good. It won the Pulitzer Prize for women's fiction, I think it was called. It's the story of David Copperfield told from the perspective of person in the hillbilly in the Appalachian Mountains kind of area, very, very poor, is being put from one bad foster situation to another over time, and finally gets a placement with the coach of the football team and his daughter, and then there's a whole set of problems within that family, but they're good to him the entire time. Barbara Kingsolver, like, this is just a long, in-depth story of this kid and the whole life he goes through and what happens to him. Spoiler alert, there is the opioid crisis is going on around them, and they're seeing that happen. So she is making a statement on that as well. But yeah, really, really good. Just super long. Like, you're just thinking, gosh, the first half could be a book, the second third could be a book, the last quarter could be a book. Like, there was so much in it, but that's what makes a good novel. So if you like a really rich, long-term read where you're just going to really get enveloped by the characters, highly recommend. Yeah, it was very good. It took me most of the last 2 weeks to get that one listened to, and then they took it, and I didn't notice it was coming due, and all I would have had to do is sit down and bang out the last whatever. And then I was driving the car one day and it just stopped playing. I was like, oh my gosh, how did I not know they were taking it back so quickly? But anyway, okay, I have a little Cori stories for all of you. I went to the Nome, North Dakota schoolhouse to teach, and it was awesome. It was just lovely. I had 6 participants, and we needed a minimum of 6 to participate. So I really want to thank those ladies for being there with me. Michelle and Jody and Phyllis and Lori and Susan. It was an experience to stay in an old schoolhouse. I was in one of the classrooms, so I had a giant room, the giant bed. I'm going to put video in at the end. The other rooms were built onto the back of the schoolhouse, and they were much smaller, perfectly comfortable, but were all decorated with like old vintage quilts on the beds and framed embroidery on the walls. Like, it's very homey, vintage. They have a beautiful yarn store in the front, right in the front of the building, but they've remodeled it, and they've left a lot of the old qualities, which is just amazing. They give you a tour of the basement where there is a mill. And on Saturday while we were there, a bus of 50 people showed up, and they served them all lunch, and they gave them all a tour of the mill and the felting. Teresa has a felting company where she felts kits, has kits in boxes, and they make all the roving there. And so they have a whole yarn mill, so they can take you through the whole basement. And then the gym is off to one side, and they completely remodeled that and put in a whole new ceiling. And on the back wall is this fiber art giant piece that took women like 6 months up on scaffolding. So there will be a picture of that in there. It's to look like the North Dakota plains with some water over on the right-hand side. It's abstract, but they punched roving into chicken wire on that. Oh, it's really a neat place. However, Nome is a tiny town, 49 people. And all of the roads in town that I drove on, except the main drag, are gravel. No gas station, no coffee shop, no restaurant, nothing like that. And it's probably, 20 miles off of I-94, something like that. And then this beautiful schoolhouse just sits in the middle of this town. And many of the people in the town work at the schoolhouse, especially when they have weddings and things. The farmer next door is the bartender on Saturday night. Like, they have just really, and everyone who was working there was pretty much women. Women-owned business, women employees. They had a woman, they served you food at your table like they brought your plates out already made up. It was just a great experience. I am going to go back in April and teach for a full week. And so if you're interested in coming to Nome, we arrive on Monday. We take one class each day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll do some knitting time, and then you go home on Friday. So a little bit longer, extended time frame there. We'll have more time for the tour. And yeah, I think it was really a nice experience for me. I really liked getting to know these women. Everybody was just lovely. Yeah. My bathroom was beautiful. There will be a picture of that. It's like very upgraded, very nice. We came in on Friday afternoon. I got there a little late. I hit some traffic and I didn't get on the road early enough. We were just supposed to arrive Friday afternoon. So I think I got there about 4, but some people had arrived by noon. 2 or 3 people flew in to Fargo, and then they pick you up and they bring you out and then they take you back. Because Jody came from Florida, all the way from Florida. She'd never been to North Dakota. So, yeah. And they got picked up and then brought out. So they had been there a little while, which I wasn't aware of. I should have now in hindsight. Because I'd never taught there. I didn't really know I could have gotten there earlier and we spent a lot of time together. But so then I taught a class on Saturday morning, a class on Saturday afternoon, and then we did trivia on Saturday night, and then I taught a class on Sunday morning, and then everyone went home about noon to 1 o'clock. They went back to the airport on Sunday afternoon. So I taught 50 Shades of Sweaters, and so I had to pack up all those suitcases and alphabetize all the sweaters, and which is why there's a picture in there of 17 suitcases and bags. It's crazy, like not 17, but a lot. And then I had a suitcase for my beading class, taught knitting with beads. And then I also taught Lappy and Vickle braids. And so I have all these samples. So then I bring mirrors so people can see when they try on the sweaters. And then I have my laptop and my iPad for trivia night because I put up a PowerPoint. And we were in a classroom the entire weekend. We had a big long table up against one side, and then there were comfortable, eclectic, oversized chairs. So we did sit in those for my Shades of Sweaters class. There was a giant loom in the room, a weaving loom. Yeah, the people were very accommodating. If there was something that someone needed, or if you had a concern or problem, they would come and try to take care of it right away. One of the light bulbs was out in the classroom, and right away they came in, they brought a big light in, just to try to take care of us. So I felt like for my first time there and their first time ever hosting me, it went really well. I will do better next time. Like, I'll know more about cramming 3 classes into 2 days with a trivia night. Like, I think everyone was like, okay, I don't need to listen to Cori talk anymore. Because that's 9 hours of class, right? And we did take a break, and we did shorten up the classes a little bit. It's only 6 people in the classes. Everybody can get personal attention. And when I have 20 or 30 people, I have to run around the room a lot more, so the class goes slower. So yeah, it was lovely. It was about a 4.5 hour drive for me, but of course you stop to get gas or go to the bathroom. It's going to take 5 hours from Minneapolis kind of area. So it's 45 miles west of Fargo. Just north of I would think maybe just north of Aberdeen, South Dakota, if I have my geography right at all. But they were very, very accommodating to our group, and I'm hoping that we can have a few more people at the next one. That would be lovely and really fun. I am teaching at the Yarnery here coming up in December, my brand new tips and tricks class, and then I'm teaching quite a bit in January and February. I have a big list. I'm doing a couple of events, so you can see all of my teaching schedule down below. Yeah, and you can follow me on my website to see what classes I'm teaching and where. I do have a virtual class coming up. I think I'm going to do my tips and tricks, I think, virtually for Prairie Road Yarn in Sioux Falls. So we're going to try to set that up here this winter, so some of you that aren't local could also take advantage of that. Well, at the Nome Schoolhouse, when you come off the elevator to the second floor, there is a library, just an open space in the hallway with bookshelves on both sides. I took pictures, and all the books are free for taking. And people have donated and donated and donated, but they're all weaving, knitting, felting, spinning books that people have donated, and some of them are quite old. So I picked up a few books that I'm going to be giving away as part of the podcast. So this is the baby collection, and it's Kate Osborne and Courtney Kelly. It has just a bunch of really cute little baby things in it. So I'm going to knit a couple of things out of that one. But then I already owned this book, and it's quite lovely. The complete book of traditional Aran knitting. So if you've never seen that one, it's quite old, but it has a ton of traditional Aran patterns in it. And then the one that I am going to give away is Knitting Without Tears. This is like a brand new copy of Knitting Without Tears by Elizabeth Zimmerman, which I already own. And so if you do not own this book, you can sign up to do the giveaway for this week. So I have quite a giveaway this week. I'm going to give away this book with this little box that holds stitch markers. There's a little partial tape measure in there that you can drop in any bag. I like to cut them apart when they break. And then 2 toggles. And then I also have 2 skeins of Cascade fingering. Cascade 220 fingering in the kind of cream color. So that will be the giveaway for this week. And all you have to do is comment on the podcast. And I only draw from Patreon members because they are supporting me. So you just comment on the Patreon part of the podcast or in the Patreon group down below, and I will draw for that. The prize winner for this week from last time is we're giving away that Rowan magazine, if you'll remember. Here is that Rowan magazine, and I drew and the winner is Joan, and that is jsunsun14 email, because Joan didn't have a last name on my Patreon, and so I don't want to assume, but anyway, that Rowan magazine goes to you, Joan. Okay, I did purchase a new knitting book, Knits from the LYS, because when I was at Rhinebeck, I purchased yarn to make a vest, and I showed you all, I think, that vest, and it's black with like stained glass color behind it. And I brought the yarn home from Rhinebeck, the stained glass colorway, and I went in the office to purchase the pattern, and the pattern was only available in the book, which is kind of a bummer. So there is that pattern that I'm going to be knitting. It's called Embassy Row, and it looks kind of like that in black and white. I'll put a picture in of the one that I am going to be knitting because my colorway is much brighter, but I'm going to use the black as the opposite. So I did get this book, and so if you guys haven't seen that, it is a collection of their best, most popular patterns from Espace Tricot out of Canada. So that might be something that some of you are interested in. And then I don't know if I saw this on Instagram, but I went over to Studio Brita and got myself a little pouch, and look at how cute that is. That is actually a little knitted piece of fabric stitched on to the front with a yarn ball and needles. Is that not darling? Did I need another pouch? No, but am I gonna put all my stuff in that? Yes, I am. Orange and raspberry, orange zipper. Like, I saw it and I was like, oh, I have to have that. So it's Studio Brita on Etsy, and she has project bags as well, with kind of machine embroidered things on the front. There was one that had a bunny on the front. I sent that to Karina of the Up North because she loves bunnies, but yeah, I just thought that was really cute. So I think that's all I have for you guys this week. I am gonna go watch the football game. We taped the beginning of it. I have cast on a couple of new things. I am gonna be working on one more design for this winter, and I haven't decided what it is yet. I have yarn, but no plan for it. So yeah, go check out all the new patterns from this fall: the Striped Dream sweater, the Chevy hat, the Pretty Boxes hat, the Sunset in Autumn cowl, and the Stevie hat. Those are all available, as well as the redo of the felted watermelon bags and the fancy felted backpack. So it was a crazy fall for me getting all those patterns out. I'm so glad they're all done. I'm gonna spend the next couple of weeks knitting and planning and attending a wedding. I have 3 guests lined up for the future episodes here. I'm going to try to record those all in the next 2 weeks so that I can edit those so that you will have a podcast on the wedding weekend. It may be late, and that'll be fine, right? I will. If I get it edited, I can schedule it for upload. That will be great. If I don't get it edited, it might be late that week, and that'll be good, right? We'll be okay. So come in for a hug. I'm so glad you're here. Thanks for watching. Bye.